Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Dear students, today inshallah we will be discussing about the philosophy behind any research. So when we talk about the philosophy, first we need to identify the epistemology and ontology of any research. Being a researcher, we need to first identify our epistemology and ontology. The question is, what is epistemology? So you need to write the definition at your end so that you can refer anytime you want. Epistemology means study of knowledge. It is the study of knowledge. What is knowledge and how we get it? What is knowledge and how we get it? If anything is not knowledge, so we can never argue that how we can get it. So first we need to identify that what is knowledge and how we can get it. Second is ontology, that relates with the relationship between each other. First epistemology is what is knowledge, about knowledge and how we get it. The second is the relationship between each other. Okay, so this is primarily important to understand any philosophy. We are heading towards the multiple philosophies. The 4 philosophies we will be talking about, the 4 philosophy only. There can be many more, but we will be talking about the 4 philosophy. Okay, but for that you need to understand what is epistemology and what is ontology. So Bilal sahab, what is epistemology?
It talks about the knowledge.
Knowledge, exactly. What is knowledge and how we get it? And what is ontology? What is ontology? Ontology is the relationship between each other. Okay, what is the relationship? How the one thing is related to other. Okay, this is the detailed knowledge, the knowledge about knowledge. Okay. Sorry, repeat करें. Sorry, repeat. Yes. हाँ बिल्कुल. तो हम that is called ontology. When anyone talk about this, it is called ontology. On the existence of things. There are existence, and if they exist, then are they related to each other? Characteristics की बात करते हैं. We talk about the detail about the knowledge. Okay, let's talk about the perspective. The 4 perspective. The 4 perspective we will be talking about. Any researcher who is researching will have one of these perspective. You cannot have multiple perspective at the same time. Whenever you start off with any research, any thesis, any report, you must stand with one of the perspective. What does that mean? It means you can be positivist, you can be constructionism, you can be constructionist, and you can be critical realist, and you can be pragmatist. Okay, so these are the 4 standpoints you can have. These are the 4 standpoints you can have. Write it down. So we will be discussing only 4. There are many, but we will be discussing only 4. As per the scope of your study, we will be discussing only 4. First is the positivism, another one is constructionism, third one is the critical realism, and the 4th one is the pragmatism. Okay, let's talk about positivism in detail. Now, when we say positivism, it means we see the world in a manner when there is a single truth. We say there is a single truth, and we have to identify that. And the procedure is also defined, well defined, and we will never accept anything beyond that. There is a single truth, and we have a standard procedure to find it out. You see, scientific research is seen as the way to get at the truth. Indeed, positivists believe that there is an objective truth out there. Objective truth. Objective means it is not subjective. It is objective, and it has to be measured in a proper standard manner. To understand the world well enough so that we are able to predict and control it. So if we are able to predict, then we can control it. So all the scientific research, the pure sciences, the mathematics, the chemistry, the physics, the biology, and others, basically they go with the positivist approach, where they say when there is a single truth, and if we are able to find out, then we will be able to control it. Got it? So they use deductive reasoning. As I already mentioned hypothetical deductive method. In the hypothetical deductive method, we already discussed that we use an approach which is a scientific one and which is a step by step. You remember? Do you remember that? In which you identify the problem area, you identify the problem, and then you develop the problem statement. Then you develop the hypothesis and you determine the measures. And then you gather the data and analyze and conclude, give the results. So you see, it is about the deductive reasoning. When you have the general theory, from that you deduce. So basically scientific method use the deductive reasoning, and it is all quantitative. Quantitative, when we say quantitative, it means it is objective. It is objective. Objective means if you and I will be measuring any single thing, then our measures will be same. There will be no change in the measures.
What would be the difference between the objective and subjective?
Okay, here I would like to give you an example of a difference between objective and subjective. For example, I develop your paper, okay, exam paper, and for that I give the answer script to anyone who can check the paper, because there will be another teacher who will be checking your answer script. So what answers I would give, I would submit to the another checker would be true, false, okay, or MCQs, exact questions. MCQs, exact answers, A, B, C, D, true, false. Okay, so this is the example of the objective, in which there is no change in the checking, no matter how many checkers are changed. Because if I don't give you a objective paper, my paper would be, what do you think about it? What do you think about research method? What do you think about hypothetical deductive method? What do you think about hallmarks of scientific research? Then the another checker would give marks as per his perspective, point of view. Okay, bhai, this is correct, this is wrong. Got it? So when we define it clearly, and there is no room to change, there is no room to add your perspective, add your point of view. It is objective. So the key approach of positive researchers is the experiment. Basically, one of the approach is experiment. We go with the experiment in the medical studies specifically, but since its generalization is weak, so we don't prefer that. We prefer the field study. We don't prefer the experiment. But in experiment specifically, the positivist approach is used, which allows them to test cause and effect relationship through manipulation and observation. So basically, what they do, they check the relationship between the variables strongly they check, and they confirm that they control all the internal and external validity as much as they can, and they find the single truth. So what we have learned over here, we have learned that positivist is the one who believes that there is a single truth and there is a standard measure to get the truth. Got it? Okay. Ontology. Now, positivism is one of the contemporary approach, and you see ontology of positivism is positivism. Okay, and epistemology is objectivism. Objectivism is your epistemology is your objectivism, and ontology is positivism. So you may define, before researching, you may define my ontology is positivism, my epistemology is objectivism. Okay, so Why? Because you stand with the positivist approach. Got it? Ji.
But objectivism is a part of positivism. Correct?
Yes.
So then what's the difference between ontology?
No, there is no difference. Basically, ontology, since I already defined, epistemology is basically what is knowledge, and ontology is the defining the relationship. So basically, it is defining the relationship. Okay? So you just have to remember. This is just for your remembering. Got it? Positivism. Has everyone understood the idea of positivism? Yes.
Sir, if there is a criticism in the research,
Yes.
how can we establish positivism?
See, when any research is not justifying the hallmarks of scientific research, which I already taught you before, so when it is not following the hallmarks the way any research has to, so it means it is not approaching toward the positivism. Okay? Positivism showing that there must be an objective single truth, and it has to be measured, it has to be achieved in a standard manner, and that is the hypothetical deductive method. And whatever you achieve, it must fulfill the hallmarks of scientific research. Got it? So that's how we differentiate, answer the criticism. If anyone criticizes your research, for example, if anyone criticize that you have taken so many variables, so you have basically, you are not fulfilling one of the hallmark. And what is that? Many hallmarks I taught you. Parsimony. So parsimony means you have too many variables. When you have too many variables, it means you have not followed one of the hallmark of scientific research. Then the criticism is correct. You have to accept that. Yes, it has limitation. This is my limitation. You have to own it. Yes, it is not the way the scientific research has to be conducted. It is compromised. You have to accept it. Why? Because it is defined. Hallmarks are defined. So you have to go that way. If your research is not rigorous and the hallmark has defined, your research has to be rigorous. If it is scientific, it has to be rigorous, detailed. And if your research is not, then you have to accept it. And when you accept it, you don't stay in the positivism. You move it. You move ahead. You move in the constructionism. Another perspective is constructionism. What is that? It criticizes the positivist belief that there is an objective truth. It criticizes that there is an objective truth. Okay? It says constructionists hold the opposite view, namely that the world as we know is fundamentally mental or mentally construed. What does that mean? It means the world we live in is basically, what we see is what we believe. What we see is what we believe. For example, if any incident happens in front of you, so there are 2 people, 3 people who are witnessing the incident, they will be interpreting differently. They will have different interpretation. So that's what they say, that there is no single truth. They say, they criticize the objectivist approach in a manner that whatever the tool or the measures are developed, so that can be biased. That can be biased. हो सकते हैं ना? For example, satisfaction is one of the variable, and you have defined its items in a manner that they are leading towards a result that can misleading. So that means that there is no single truth. So they say the world what see is the perspective of many people. So we need to accept it, that there is always biasness. There is always biasness. For example, if the objectivist complete his research and whatever interpretation he does, it may have some biasness. It may have some biasness. Why? Because the researcher is also part of the society. He is not out of the society. Whatever the society generalize, he has in his mind, negative and positive, whatever. So there is a relationship between the human and the environment. So they say you cannot take them out, separate them out. So what they say, that you have to accept that constructionism is the approach to get the truth. So this is about it. Next is critical realism. When we say critical realism, it is a combination. It is a combination of the belief in an external reality with the rejection of the claim that this external reality can be objectively measured. Observations will always be subject to interpretation. Okay, they say that since any truth has to interpret, so there is a relationship between the both philosophies. So you can measure anything objectively, you may measure anything objectively, but you need interpretation of a researcher, and that interpretation is the critical realism. So critical realism says that no research is only objective. There is a link between the researcher and the outcome. So whenever any outcome, any result comes, the researcher interprets in the manner he wants. That's why you might have witnessed few researches which are inclined towards the chocolate eating. The researches which are biased towards the oil industry. Many big universities in the world, they are being financed by the oil industry, and because of that they are not researching in a particular direction. You see, this is one of the way. They are influencing, they are investing so that there are little researches on the other fuels, biofuels. So one of the example that there is always an interpretation, there is always inclusion of a researcher in every outcome. Whenever there is an outcome, the researcher interprets in his own manner. Okay, because since he has a lot of knowledge, so he can interpret. So critical realists say the combo is accepted. The combo is accepted. Constructionism says there is no objectivity. Objectivist says there is no constructionism. Critical realists say the both are okay. We are okay with both of them. Both are possible. Because they say that no research outcome is 100% objective. It is a mix of the researcher point of view and the objective outcome. The last one is the pragmatism. Pragmatist is the one who says you learn from the industry and you apply in the industry. So you keep learning from the industry and you keep applying, and that's how it moves. Pragmatists do not take on a particular position on what makes good research. Pragmatist is that it views the current truth as tentative and changing over time provisional truth. They say anything which you see is the provisional truth, and the real truth you have to find. You always keep researching, like research and development in any company, they keep researching and innovating. They keep researching and innovating and move on. So that's the pragmatist approach, and they do not take the point of view of any single one. They are not strict on that. They say the objectivist and the constructionism both are correct, and you can get the truth, but the truth is temporary. They say the differentiation is they say the truth is temporary. There is no permanent truth, and for that you have to find out. You have to implement the research and you have to keep doing the research for the further improvement. Okay? So these are the four contemporary approaches which we discussed. So we are done with the philosophy. Any questions so far? Yes.
Can you give an example of pragmatism?
Pragmatism, for example, any applied research is basically an example of the pragmatist approach. So when you apply the learning and to solve the research problem, and when you solve the problem, you implement it, and when you implement and you observe and you find another problem, then you improve it. So you keep improving, you keep taking problem from the industry and you keep solving it. So basically this is the pragmatist approach. You don't say that this is the final answer. You keep finding the solution of the problems which are current. So they are not permanent, they are current. They say the problems keep coming with the passage of time, because the things are changing, demographics are changing, requirements are changing, seasons are changing. So there is a keep changing in the in the environment scenario. Ji.
As you discuss in the constructionism that it criticizes the belief that there is an objective truth.
Yes.
So it means that it would be either true or false. Objective truth means that it would be
Yes.
true or false.
Yes, exactly. I see. Yeah. So the pure science says that either you get the results or you don't get. Okay? They say if you go in the standard manner, you get the single truth. And if you don't, you will not get the single truth. So their method is also very important. And they say hypothetical relative method, which I taught you, is the sequential method to get the truth. So they say you have to follow the deductive reasoning. They do not accept the inductive reasoning, which I taught you. You remember? I taught you the inductive reasoning. Does anyone remember the inductive reasoning?
It's based on the observation.
Exactly. So they do not accept it. Objectivists never accept the inductive reasoning. They say deductive reasoning is the reasoning to get the truth. And the constructionism says that the truth can be get from the inductive reasoning.
Objective truth.
Yes. No, they don't use the word objective. They say truth can be multiple, and they can be found from inductive reasoning. So inductive and deductive is the basic difference between the pure sciences and the pseudoscience or the other ways. Okay? So we also compromise in our researches in the business administration, in the management science, in the social sciences. We can not say that our researches are pure scientific research. We can never say. Why? Because if I give you the example of the hallmarks. Hallmarks are not even followed by the social sciences, by the management sciences. 100%. We do not follow them. If they are followed purely, then only the research would be called scientific. So basically, our approach is not objectivist approach. Actually, any other question? Or we will move further to the literature review. The next chapter, that is chapter number 4. So we are done with the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Now we are moving towards chapter 4.
Sir,
Yes. Yes.
this perspective, we can also say, in other words, that it is saying that the research can only be done through scientific method, to follow the steps of deduction.
As per positivist. As per positivist. Yes. Okay. Now we are talking about the literature review. Any idea about the literature? Did we talk about the literature before? Did we talk? Gee, anyone who would like to contribute? Yes.
Literature is basically
Then did we talk? Did I talk? Did you listen to me? You did not listen to me, I talked. You see, at the time making the problem statement, at the time finding the real problem from the problem area, finding the real problem or the cause of the problem, you consult to the literature. I gave you the example of the airline passengers, that the passengers are frustrated, they are angry. Why? So what we did, we went to the literature, already done researches by many researchers, and we found that what are the reasons? What are the reasons when the customers are angry, give the bad word of mouth, and when they have to waiting? So the literature gave us many reasons. Okay? Many reasons. And from that we identify the real reason of our problem. So you see, literature has to be referred for the problem statement, writing the problem statement, and then we move on to the literature review. Literature review is the concept in which you talk about the literature purely. It is not for the problem statement, it is not to find the real problem, it is about the learning about multiple researcher, what multiple researcher has talked about your topic, your variables. So you learn many things from the literature. I am about to discuss. There are multiple learnings from the literature review. Okay? So this chapter is purely very important in terms of what you learn from the literature review. So when we say critical means you talk about the merits and demerits. Critically, whenever I say critically review it, so you talk about the advantages and disadvantages. Okay? The good and bad. So that is called the critical. When you only talk about the good, that is not critical. When you talk about the good and bad, you talk about critically. So it's an important point. So literature review means you find out the literature pro to your topic and against your topic, in favor of your topic and against your topic. That means critical means in favor of your topic, whatever your topic is, whatever your problem is, customer frustration, loyalty, brand loyalty, any sort of the problem. So you are going to see multiple perspectives, either in favor or against. So that is why it is called critical literature review. Yes.
Literature can be a person also.
Sorry?
Literature can be a person also.
Literature can be a personal also. Yes.
Person also.
Person? Sorry.
किसी ने पास में कुछ काम किए हो, आप उसके बाद फिर बदल के देखो भाई बताओ ये मसला देख रहा है,
हाँ.
वो भी जो लिटरेचर
Achha, very good. He is saying that if we consult anyone, any expert, so it can also be a literature. That's it. See, when we use the word literature, it means the published one. You are saying the expert. It is called, in the research term, it is called expert. You can always take an expert opinion. Okay, that is something else. Here we are talking about purely the published data. The published data, not a person, but a published data. Got it? Clear? Okay. So we are going to introduce about it, how to approach the literature review, searching for literature, and evaluating the literature, documenting the literature review, ethical issue. Ethical issues are very important, because you cannot accept any research and you cannot go to find any and every research anytime. You need to be careful in that. So we will be discussing about it. Searching for literature, I will be telling you, just make me remember, if I forget, that searching for literature, I will be going to the search engine and make you understand that how you can search the literature, because it has to be in the application manner. It is not a theoretical, it is a application. So how to approach the literature review, I will be telling you. Evaluating the literature, I will be telling you. Documenting the literature review. Documenting means when you refer the literature, because whatever you are talking, the researcher never write a single sentence of his own. He only learn from the literature or from the data. That's it. He never talk by his own. Whenever a researcher says, I think, the research is failed. The research has no worth. So very important that documenting the literature review. That means whatever you are referring, you have to document at the end, in detail. That is called write it down, that is called the bibliographic citation. That is called bibliographic citation. It contains not only the research paper, but the conferences, proceedings, books, etc. Whatever you have referred as a literature, you have to in detail define at the end of your research. At the end of your research, because it will make anyone to read your references. So you share in detail from where you are talking about. Okay? Obviously you cannot share in every line, you cannot share the 2 sentences of detail. So you take all the details at the end. You take all the details at the end. So details are at the end, of every research you are referring. Got it? That is called bibliographic citation. Bibliographic citations. You might have seen references. That is true for the research papers only. When we talk about the thesis, the project, we go with the bibliographic citation because it includes the books as well, other kind of literature, conference proceeding as well, or anything like that. Conference proceeding, by the way, is not the real literature, so we do not go because it is not a published one. It has not gone through the reviews, proper reviews by the experts. So we do not go with the conference proceeding. We go with the published literature which is reviewed by the professionals, by the experts. Any questions so far? Yes, references is only for the research papers, and bibliographic citation, when we see, it means it includes the references, includes the books as well and the research papers and the other text which can be referred. For example, news articles, the authentic news articles, or anything which is authentic, you can refer. Okay, that is called bibliographic citation. Any other question? Shall we move on? Okay. Our literature review ensure the following. I need your attention over here because your quiz and your exam, I will be assessing you on these points. These are the theoretical discussion. A literature review ensures the following. The research effort is positioned related to existing knowledge and builds on this knowledge. So whatever the researcher take the position, it is based on the existing knowledge and he builds his argument on the base of existing knowledge. So he never says this is correct or this is wrong. He says on the basis of the previous researchers. He makes his point on the basis of the previous researchers. He rejects any idea on the basis of the previous researchers' outcomes. That's how it goes. You can look at a problem from a specific angle. It shapes your thinking and sparks useful insights on the topic of your research. For example, online shopping. So you are not talking about the shopping only, you are talking about the online shopping. And in that you want to talk about the impulse buying at online shopping. So you see, you can look at a problem from a specific angle. So you are talking about specifically. There are many literature for the online shopping, but not specifically for the impulse buying. So you will talk about the impulse buying only. So that's how you make your angle. You do not run the risk of reinventing the wheel. You do not have to reinvent the wheel because you are going to waste your resources. That is wasting effort on trying to rediscover something that is already known. So basically, if you talk anything which is already done, then there is no worth for it. It's a waste of time, waste of effort, waste of resources. So you need to see that whatever you are about to find is worthful or not.
Like filling in the market gap.
You need to see if the researches are already there on the particular problem solution, then you do not need to go for the research. There is no need. It's a bad idea to go for the research. It's a waste of resources and money. That is why literature review is very, very important. Because over here you identify in real that whether the research, the topic you are going to talk about is already discussed in the industry or not. Across the world, very interesting, across the world, specifically in your own context. So when we when we conduct our research in the Pakistani context, we need to see, we need to know all the journals, all the public journals of the Pakistani context, all the researches which are being published by the Pakistani researchers, because the Pakistani researchers are researching the and solving the Pakistani context problems. So it will be easy for you. American researcher will never be solving the Pakistani context problem. Pakistani researchers, the students who are in Malaysia, in America, in Europe and other part of the world, they are basically getting the data of Pakistani companies, Pakistani people and researching. So you need to see whether what are the researches already done on your topic, and never make a statement that this research has never been done until you are for 100% sure. If you make this statement, you may lose your credibility. You may on the verge of lose your credibility on this statement, because this is a very big statement that there is no research on this topic. So it is better to say as a researcher, there are researches on the online shopping but not on the impulse buying. That makes a little sense. But when you say there is no research on the online shopping, the reviewer will say, shut up, this is not possible. This is already done topic, saturated topic. You are saying that there is no research. Makes sense? So it is a little tricky. You learn the research, doing the research with the passage of time. And this is a very technical idea. You learn the literature review with the passage of time when you keep researching, keep sifting through the research. You are able to introduce relevant terminology and to define key terms used in your writing. This is important because the same term may have different meaning depending on the context in which it is used. Definitions will also help you to give a structure to your essay, article, or report. You see, one terminology it is not necessary that one terminology is used in a single context. There can be a multiple definition of a single terminology. This is very important. You need to see. If you do not understand the real definition, then you can never build your context on. If you have taken the wrong citations, the wrong researches and explaining it, so it will be a waste of resources and you are not going to solve anything. So you need to see what terminology you are using and is it correct with your context, or is it the one you are seeking, or the wrong one. This is a very important one. Okay, when we talk about the customer attitude, so which customer we are talking about? The customer, the patient is a customer, or the student, or the FMCG product? Which customer? Very important. So you have to be very precise, very conscious when you talk about the variables, when we talk about the terminologies. You obtain useful insight of the research methods that others have used to provide an answer to similar research questions. Very important that since the researches are already done, so you do not, what do you see in the research? Any idea? What do you look? How do you learn from any research paper? What is the purpose whenever you find out any research paper and you want to learn from it? How you go about it? Any idea? Very good. And what are the particular topics in which you will look to learn? Particular topics, for example, problem statement, methodology, results, analysis, method, audience, respondents. So what is basically you are looking for? Point is, Miss, you were saying something?
What I was saying is, when doing a research on something, a specific topic, and then I am finding out the literature on that topic. So I need to know whatever I think, whatever is my opinion of something, and it is backed up by that literature. If what I'm saying is correct or not, and if it is proven or not. The researches that have been done for any qualitative research or quantitative research, if it implements in the research paper that I am doing, so I need to make sure that it is there.
Exactly. Very good. सबसे पहले तो Miss has said very correctly, you need to see that whether the research is relevant or not. If it is not relevant, then what is the purpose of reading the whole paper? First, what you need to do, you need to write it down. You need to read the abstract of the paper. That is the summary of the paper. You need to read the summary of the paper or abstract of the paper. It is not called summary, it is called abstract. It is called the abstract. So what you learn from the abstract, you learn most of the things which are used in the paper. For example, what is the objective of the research? ठीक है? What is the outcome of the research? What is the methodology of the research? Who are the respondents? ठीक है? What software application is used for the analysis? What is the method of solving the problem? Is it the quantitative one, qualitative one? Which one? ठीक है? So you learn so many things from any abstract. So first you need to see whether it is relevant and not. Then what you do, you go and download the paper. When you download the paper, you see the background or the introduction in which the problem statement is there and the objective and such questions are there. So you read it thoroughly. 1 to 4 paragraphs has everything. So you understand that what is the problem and how they are approaching. Through reading more, you are trying to find the literature review as well. The second topic is literature review. You find the literature review. In the literature review, you find so many perspectives on the same topic of yours. ठीक है? Then the methodology, hypothesis and the methodology. So you find the hypothesis relationship as well. What are the relationships? Possible relationship of the same problem solution. Then the methodology to solve the problem. Respondents, methodology, measures. ठीक है? Then the analysis, the statistical analysis, the numbers you see, and then at the end interpretation. So basically you learn so many things from the research paper. Anyone would summarize my this point? जी आप. What you learned from the research paper? I just mentioned in detail what you learned from the research.
Problem solving.
Yes, problem solving, but how? By looking at which part? Yes, abstract only? Yes. Relevant है कि नहीं है? Yes. Very good. Very good. देखें, I am just repeating myself. From the research paper, what you learn? First, on the top of any research paper, there is an abstract. An abstract gives you an idea of everything about the research paper. In a paragraph, you learn everything about the research paper. If it is relevant to you, if it is related to your particular topic, you read the whole paper thoroughly. Otherwise, you move ahead. You look for the relevant literature. If it is relevant, then you move ahead and you read the introduction part that includes the problem statement. Very important. That includes the problem statement and then the research objective and questions. And when you move ahead, there is a literature review on the same topics which you are interested. So you are having so much ideas out of it. You are keep reading the literature and learning that who are the researchers talked about on the same topic. When? With the details at the end. If you want to find out the whole article, you go at the end and find the research paper. Download the research paper and read that one. You see how the things are linked. With the one research paper, you can read so many research papers. And you have to maintain a sheet for that. There must be a sheet for that to note down what are the research papers you are reading. So on the sheet, what you have to write? You have to write the first publisher, write it down. Publisher. Publisher is important. Publisher must be authentic. Publisher must be authentic. What does that mean? It means credible. Credibility must be there. That their articles are peer reviewed, blind reviewed. Okay, multiple experts have reviewed that articles. Multiple experts have reviewed the article, then published. Okay? So publisher is very important. So first you need to look at the publisher. Okay? Then the journal name is also important, because every journal has the same fame, same exposure or same acknowledgement of any publisher. For example, if you see Springer is the publisher, so his every journal has no acceptance, has no same acceptance. So we need to see what journal we are talking about. Okay? For example, if you say my research paper is recently published, people would ask who is the publisher. You say Springer. Which journal? You need to say. Journal is basically has scope. So when you name the journal, people would get an idea which field you are talking about. If you are in business, you cannot say in medical science journal, I have published my article. What? So people have an idea with the journal name. Journal name is very important, because one publisher has multiple field journal, 20 journals, and not every journal has some rating, impact factor rating. So you go for that. And the articles must be latest. The articles must be latest. Latest means if you are in the 2024, then do not go beyond 2022 until and unless there is a need. For example, you go with the theory, you go with the classical literature, the literature which everyone cites, that is something else. That is an exception. That can go up till 1980, 1960 or like that. That is something else. For example, theory you are referring. So theory, the big theories, the theories which are referred by everyone can be old as the last century. You can go. But this is the latest knowledge. Why? Because you believe the knowledge is keep improving. If you refer to the old articles, that has no worth. Why? Because the same concept can be refuted, can be rejected, or the problem already solved. So you do not go beyond, you do not go before 2022. Okay, so what I mentioned, I am just summarizing. I mentioned the publisher must be the peer-reviewed article, publisher must have some reputation, authentic, credible. Okay? Every publisher has some authenticity. If I say Springer has authenticity, and because of that, most of the Springer journal has a good ranking. So we counted a good publisher. So whenever your article is published, you share with the publisher name, Emerald, Springer, Sage, elsewhere. Okay? So these are the publisher name which are famous, and people ask you the publisher first, and the researchers who has a great knowledge, they ask you the journal name as well. When you give the journal name, they can easily get an idea about the scope of the journal. what is the topic of your, what may be the topic of your article. So this is it. So is it clear? Yes. Yes.
Everyone thinks in a different way.
Sorry.
Everyone thinks in a different way. I have established a specific angle to my research, but you think that this research is not so specific. So there is a risk of my research being compromised. So how to overcome that?
You say that everyone has his own point of view.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good question. So you see, research is a difficult thing to learn. It is a complex idea actually, especially when we talk about the scientific research. It comes, you learn with the passage of time. You learn from reading multiple books, having multiple perspectives. When you keep reading the researches on the same topic, at least 10, 20, 30, 40, so your mind is programmed at how you approach any problem. So when you know how to approach a problem, then you are correct and there is no risk. So if you see any risk, then you can consult anyone, or you can partner, you can make a team of a researcher, because there is no need, you should not write a solo research. You can have multiple researchers to write a paper. And the reason is that because we believe that no single person is an authority. That is why we make a team and we go for the publishing. The articles has more than 10 writers, may have more than 10. In medical science, it is usual that the article has more than 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It can have more than 20 writers, researchers. So basically, that's how you team up and you consult with the other researcher so that the risk is minimized and there will be a great probability of your writing to be published in a credible journal. Got it? Any other question? Okay, so we talked about it. Now we move on. Okay, let's discuss with the example 4.1 in the book. Okay, let's see. We talked about the definition. I think most of you cannot see that. Okay, read it on your computer if you have. If your computer is working, please